All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Kay Malady, and I am the moderator for Marketing How To. And we're really excited. I am really excited to hear this panel. As a soon-to-be self-published author myself, I'm hoping to get all these tips from these awesome panelists we have. So first up, I've got Laynie Bynum. She is the author of the Infernal Echo series, Fair Youth, and many other books that I won't even name right now. But what is also very cool, I think, especially for this panel, is that she's the co-owner and marketing director of Sword and Silk Books. And when she's not writing or publishing, she enjoys searching for adventure in the Appalachian Mountains with her 2 kids and her beagle named Bagel. So thank you so much for being here, Laynie. We have also got Sarah Rhea Werner. She is a writer, speaker, and podcast producer who loves to help other creators find confidence and success. And again, really excited for her because I think she's going to provide some great input here as a marketer herself. She is the creator of the Right Now with Sarah Werner podcast. Yeah. And the award-winning audio drama Girl in Space, and is the executive producer of a new fantasy audio drama, Omen. Sarah has contributed to Forbes and ghostwritten multiple books, and she has got some information. At the end of this, I will give you all of the details for both Sarah, Laynie, and then Whitney will be introducing, because we've got some social media that we want to send you all to for these people, because I think they're going to be resources after this panel as well. And last but not least, we have Whitney McGruder. And Whitney is a YA and NA, so young adult and new adult fantasy author. She self-published the Destiny Seeker series and plans on publishing her first new adult fantasy novel, The Throwaway Queen, in August or September of 2022. So look for that. Now, I think this is adorable. She is married to her favorite author, Travis McGruder. They have matching BAs in English with minors in editing, and they provide professional freelance editing services to help other authors refine their stories and create diverse and inclusive book communities. She also works as an editor and marketing coach for a hybrid publishing company, New Degree Press. And so when she's not working on her own book, she's helping other authors learn how to successfully break into the publishing industry. And so I think the 3 of them together, this is going to be a fantastic panel. And so what I really want to do now is jump right into it and ask each of you, what have you done to market a book? Tell me that. I know, and that's a great first question, right? Because my goodness, can I ask anything broader, right? So Laynie, would you mind telling us what's your background marketing a book?
So I originally went to school and I got my degree in public relations. At the time, I didn't think I was going into the book world. I just thought that I was writing for fun. But then some people read some of my writing and they said you should get into writing books. And I kind of started my journey. And then I figured out that one of the things that was missing from the small publishing world was marketing. And there was a huge need for it. So I jumped into the kind of back office side of publishing, working as marketing director. In that time, I sold my own books to a small press and figured out that a lot of times they just throw you out there with absolutely no idea what you're doing. So I then changed my game as a marketing manager a little bit, because I realized that a lot of things that are not necessarily no-brainers, but pretty obvious to someone with a marketing degree aren't as obvious to someone who has focused on writing their books. And then I took that a step further, and with a co-owner who was working behind the scenes in the editorial side, we opened Sword and Silk Books. So I have marketed my own books as the author. I have marketed other people's books as an employee, and I now work as the marketing director, marketing books for Sword and Silk. And a lot goes into it. If you do it right, a lot goes into it. And especially if you are indie published, whether it's with an independent press or if it's with, you're self-publishing, there's a lot of different facets of marketing, everything from picking the right book cover, which Whitney's book cover is amazing and right on genre. And she had the idea going into it, obviously, of, hey, what is going to fit this book well? What is going to sell this book? And you can see it on the cover. It's definitely a cover that intrigues you, makes you want to pick it up, makes you want to read the back, see what it's about. So, I mean, it starts even that far back, as far as your cover, knowing the hooks of your book, knowing the tropes in your book. I mean, you have to know that book inside and out, and what is going to make people want it, what is going to connect your book to its audience. So all of that comes into play. And then just kind of once it gets out there, you want to make connections with readers. A lot of book marketing is not necessarily about selling the book, but about selling yourself as an author. You want to sell your brand. So that's what I've done with a lot of book marketing, is try to teach authors how to find their brand, how to connect with those readers, and kind of help them through some steps along the way.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Laynie. And to Sarah, it's my understanding you have not marketed a book. Is that right?
Correct. And let me tell you all about my not marketing a book. It was funny when I was asked to be on this panel, I was like, well, is it okay if I'm on here? And I've never marketed a book, but I do want to reassure you, I've never marketed a book, but I come from I want to say a long line of marketing, but that's really not how you say things like that. I was in marketing for over a decade before I left to start my own business 5 years ago. So 5 years of that career was spent doing traditional in-house marketing. So TV ads, brochures, billboards, all of that stuff. And then I transitioned to a digital only agency. And that's really where I got to dial in on things like creating your own website, SEO, user experience, user interface, personal branding. Laynie, I love that you talk about personal branding. That's one of my favorite things to talk about. And that's where social media comes into play and can be so powerful for writers at all stages. So yeah, I also, speaking of not marketing, like you said earlier in my introduction, I've ghostwritten 7 books, which is like, I can't let anyone know that I wrote those. So it's like the anti-marketing. But also I do have several podcasts that I produce that I do market as well. And so it's just, and I feel like there's a lot of crossover between marketing books and marketing podcasts, maybe a little bit less about, the particulars, making sure that readers know what genre it is, specific book cover design things, but we still do have cover art. We still do have a hook. We still do have all of these different ways to talk about our work. So selling creative work is always going to be interesting, no matter what genre. So I'm here. And again, as Kay said, if you want to get in touch with me on social media after this, I love to talk about personal branding. So if we don't touch on anything here that you'd like to hear, then just let me know. Is that helpful, or should I keep talking?
No, I think that's fantastic. No, that was kind of going to be my question, as far as introducing you a bit more was, I know very little about branding, and I know very little about social media. I did not join Twitter personally until 2015 for my current pen name, not until January.
Wringing our hands.
I know, we're like,
but I feel like I've got this idea in my head that, a book is a commodity, right? And so you're branding yourself, branding your work. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of crossover, whether you're branding, whether you're selling a book, selling a podcast, selling your clients. Is that fair to say?
It's you. It's your voice in a different form. So it's your voice in a book. It's your voice on a podcast. It's you and your creativity. Yeah. So yes.
And so Whitney, so you obviously you've self-published, you've got some coming. Presumably you have marketed a book or are intending on it, and you've got this idea of personal brand. We've heard it at least twice now. I wonder if we'll hear it from panelist 3.
Yeah. So I did market my books. I would say that part of marketing is just it's almost like being a scientist where you just throw experiments out there and you just see what works. And so a lot of my experience has just been, well, another author I admire does this, so I'm going to give it a try and see if it works for me and my readers. And so that might be exciting for some. It could be annoying or frustrating to others, because I know a lot of authors who are watching this are probably like, so when do I actually work on my books? And something that I learned early on, so just like Sarah, I have marketing experience as well, in the sense that I used to work for an SEO company. And so I know like the basics of SEO, websites and stuff like that. But my readers weren't always going to my website. They were hanging out in other places. And so a lot of my research was just, where are my readers? Where are my ideal readers? And how do I give them what they want, you know? And so the things that I've done in the past have just been posting on social media. Like Instagram is my second home. It's like my summer house. And I just throw all of my ideas there. But one thing that has really helped me in balancing being an author and also like the head of marketing for my, for my books is that I would set up a calendar of just what do I want to share, how often, and then just like what sort of images do I want, what hashtags do I want to use. That way I had a plan. So it didn't feel like it was desperate or that it was unhinged. It was just once a month you hear about my books, the books I've already written. Once a month you'll hear about my editing services, so on and so forth. So people know what to expect from me, but it's not like, please, oh, please buy my book, just with the, I think there's a trope that we're already aware of, and it's the author that's maybe somewhere like Twitter, where like every tweet is, my book is on sale, go get my book right now. And it's like, is there anything else that you would like to share with the class? And something that's great about personal branding that the other two have touched on is that you get to decide how much you want to share and how much you want to keep private. One thing that has helped me in marketing is being transparent in my marketing experience, where being an indie author means that you are like a one-person show. And that can lead to a lot of burnout, which Sarah's podcast talks about a lot, and I really appreciated those episodes. And so, that's part of my personal brand is like, sometimes you struggle and you just talk about it. So, and that has indirectly helped me connect with other authors or readers that are just, looking for those kind of people to interact with online, as opposed to having this sort of official, just this official facade with like a million filters and all that good stuff. My personal brand means that like my values shine through, not just through my books, but through my posts as well. So I think that's like a smattering of my answer to your question.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. And it really, I even, you may have seen me looking down. I was writing down what came up when you talked. And I've got two, I think, that came from that. What we're seeing now, at least me, again, someone kind of new to this whole world, and potentially the people in the audience who may be new, but maybe not. We're seeing social media as a massive, a benefit or otherwise. I mean, I go to Barnes and Noble and there's an entire table that says what recommended on Book Talk, right?
Yeah.
And so is there, if someone were to focus most of their time, like if, we don't have a lot of time to market because we are trying to write, we maybe have a day job, we have families, we, want to do other fun stuff too, like D&D, I don't know. Where should we be spending our time? Should we be focusing on something like Book Talk and creating our brand that way? Or are there other avenues? I mean, if we don't have a lot of time to devote to marketing, what should we do?
I think my answer to that, what I'd tell somebody, is focus on what feels comfortable and what feels fun. You do not have to be on every platform doing everything all the time. If you find yourself scrolling on TikTok every day for, an hour, and you're like, oh, I could do this and I could do that, and you're already having ideas, capitalize on that. Put your books out there and have fun with it. If you're not having fun with it, marketing can be a soul suck. But have fun with it. Find where you feel at home. I know that I should be on Instagram way more than I am, but I don't live there. I'll scroll through it every so often, and I'll check my notifications, and I'll throw up some posts. But for me, I've always been a Twitter person, just because I like to be funny and keep my words brief. So it works out well for me. I've done TikTok, I've gotten on there, but it's things that, I see a trend come about, and I'm like, oh, I have a wonderful idea for how I can put my book into this. If it's a trend, my first book was about a British celebrity falling for this average girl. And so if you have a trend where Taylor Swift is talking about how she loves guys from London, it fits very well. I'm able to capitalize on it, but you don't have to focus on everything all the time. And your main focus is about making that authentic, real connection with other authors and readers, and you should have fun with it.
Yeah.
Say it really does depend on your genre. Book Talk tends to really gravitate towards young adult fiction or fantasy. Romance is hot over on Book Talk, and so if you're a romance author, get over there now. But just imagining your target reader, if you are maybe doing historical fiction, like one of the authors I'm working with, she has found more success with Facebook because her book is meant for just older, more mature readers. And as many of us know, more of our mature associates are still using Facebook. And so, there's no problem with going where you think your readers are going and just staking your claim there. So I would say it really does depend on your genre. I would say if you're writing nonfiction, LinkedIn is a really good place to go, mainly because rather than sharing posts to market in the same way you would with Book Talk, where you're doing a dance and pointing at words, you're likely making connections can I speak at your conference, or, can I, sell my book, or have a sort of corporate event or something like that. And so again, it's really getting to know your target reader and going where they are, because I spend a lot of time on Instagram, and I think I would really be burned out if I was spending equal amount of time, on Clubhouse, Discord, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and the like. So that's what I had to say.
Whitney, that is beautiful and wonderful. Well, both of you, Laynie and Whitney, I don't even know if there's anything left for me to say other than, you can really exhaust yourself chasing trends. And I love Laynie's point about going where you're comfortable, and Whitney's point about going where your audience is. And I think what I can add to that is just making sure you understand what you want out of your social media experience, what your goals are, and are they measurable? And then what are your readers looking what are they looking for from you as a writer, as a creator on social media? And so I really liked too what Whitney said earlier about being strategic about what you post and making sure you have a posting schedule. It's not necessarily a must have, but it does keep it from feeling out of control and scattershot. So I think it's really important to remember that a follower on social media does not equal a book sold necessarily. What it is it's building up your audience through the know, like, and trust sort of funnel. So social media is a great way for people to just get an idea that you exist at all. And then they begin to like you, they begin to know you, they begin to trust you. over time. But social media can often be sort of like I sometimes call it a little bit of a vanity metric because it doesn't necessarily translate to book sales, but it is really important for building your audience and giving them valuable content. So that's my 2 cents on social media.
That is awesome. And I think that takes me really into, what's I think implied in there is that part of it's also your brand too. And we've all said what brand, or, we've implied it. Again, the outside of social media person here, is your brand you? Is it all, or is it also what you present? And here's kind of the question as part of that. We're all here showing our faces, right? Mine is, I know, right? This is actually a pen name. Malady is not my real life name, but I'm showing my real face. But what if you're not comfortable? And what if you are behind a pen name? What kind of brand can you create when if you're not showing yourself? If readers are wanting you, or instead maybe just your book, what if I present that to you? What can I do to create a brand if that's the scenario that I'm in?
Yeah, totally. And I only jumped on this because this is a question I've gotten before from authors and first-time authors who are like, hey, I'm writing under a pen name. I'm writing romance. I don't want my mom to know, or whatever, whatever their reason is, or, it's something
Mom's
more
not
serious.
the target audience. Yeah.
No, mom is like the anti-audience, if we can coin a phrase. Mom is the no, do not open this book. And you can still create an extremely powerful brand using a pen name. And I've seen authors do different things. And again, like Whitney said earlier, it's a great idea just to see what your favorite authors are doing on social media. Whitney, that is such a great point. What actually feels like it works for you? And really a lot of personal branding depends on the persona that you're building, and just what are you sharing? How are you wording things? That all of these little subtle things. What is your profile picture on whatever social media it is? What kind of music are you using in the background of your TikTok videos? That all creates a sense. And in my experience, a brand is less about the stuff that's presented and more an overall how you make people feel. And I think that's what people carry with them about a brand is, I'm looking at a logo. I look at the Starbucks logo and I feel a certain way, whether I love their coffee or I hate their coffee. Looking at a logo provokes a very deep feeling inside me. And so even if you're not comfortable using your face, as your profile picture, if you can choose something that is maybe a logo, or one of your early book covers, or just something that represents you and can stand for you and can evoke a feeling within people, that can be a really powerful place to start with your branding.
That's awesome. I really like that, Sarah. And I like how you put that too. It's about how it's not so much what you say as well. It's how you make people feel. I think that's fantastic. Laynie, did you have any, hopefully, my question was clear enough that you were able to come up with some thoughts too.
Yeah, and I'll kind of capitalize on what Sarah said. One of the things that we did when we opened Sword and Silk is, we, as a company, we can't use our face, so it is a little bit like a pen name where, where you can't sell yourself, you're selling a product. And one of the things we did was a branding exercise where we sat down and we said, what do we want people to perceive us as? And of course, it was silly things like, your big sister that always wears cardigans, loves coffee, and always has a good book. Yeah, that's what we want to be. And then we ended up with some amazing branding that focuses. We wanted to show the soft side of, how strong female characters can be soft, but they can also, be strong. And so we ended up with, we have the sword that's in the middle of the Sword and Silk, and we have the silky background. And every bit of that was consciously thought, from our colors to our logo, every part of it. And you can do that yourself. I have a little bit of experience with that as a pen name, because I used to co-write with someone often who got into a situation where they are contracted with one company. They can only write fiction for one company. And so they could not legally write with me anymore unless it was under a pen name.
Oh no.
So instead of being co-writers, we are now one person. And we had to figure out how to market that without ever saying who we are. Because like legally, we cannot say who we are. But it's, you know, it's paranormal romance and urban fantasy. So we used a lot of bright purples and blues and blacks, and there's a moon that kind of gives off a witchy vibe, so that people knew what they were getting when they followed our Twitter or picked up one of our books or saw our author page on Goodreads. They knew what they were getting without actually having to know. They didn't have to read a bio. They've been ingrained to this stuff so often by book covers and media and things that they don't realize, but they instinctually know those colors, those symbols, that's probably going to be a book like this. You know, if you see dripping blood, you're probably going to think it's some kind of thriller. You know, if you see like a crescent moon and you know, maybe a lady with a pointy hat, you're thinking it's going to be some sort of fantasy or you know, paranormal or something like that. So marketing us was a little easier when we understood those concepts. On top of that, going on social media, even on TikTok, you don't have to show your face. So they do like the book flips where it's just pages flipping by and then quotes over the top. It's absolutely fine, as long as you are connecting with the readers that are looking for those books. You know, if you're a romance author and you want to pull in people that like spicy romance, you're going to want to pull quotes from your books that are spicy, and things like that. So same thing with Instagram. You can take pictures of pretty books. I have an author friend that I met at a conference who her books take place in Scotland, and they're like historical romance books that take place in Scotland. She will once every couple of years or whatever go out to Scotland, and she will take pictures of places that the books like that are in the books, and then she will go, her audience is mainly on Facebook, as Whitney talked about. She will go on Facebook and she will write, you know, this big beautiful post about what this location meant in the book and how beautiful it is in real life, and then she'll post those pictures, and she takes enough of them on her trips to kind of hold her out through the year. You don't have to show your face. You don't have to necessarily show your legal name or anything like that, as long as the readers feel like they are connecting with the author, even if the author is kind of a part you're playing. So it's possible. It's very possible.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Laynie. Whitney, anything to add?
I was just going to say overall, what we're trying to say is to set boundaries and then to set expectations, because yeah, whether it's for safety or maybe you're just like, I don't feel like showing my face, I'm not comfortable. Like it's not like you just have to go through it or whatever. It's just, yeah, you set those expectations, and once you're consistent with it, it's like, I don't want to say like it's that easy, but that's essentially like the core of setting a brand, is like it is consistent. Like when you see a certain font or color or symbol, as Laynie said, people might recognize as they're scrolling through their feed, like, oh, this is a pull quote from this author that I follow, things like that. And I think that's really just, if we were to distill branding, I think we just did it, where it's just know what you want to share, and then just share it forever and ever until you stop marketing books, It really, something that I had to learn was that marketing is not just, celebrating your book right after it's published. It's a long game of reminding people that you have books out, that books are coming out, or maybe you have other projects you want people to know about. But a lot of people will stick around because it's just consistent. It's not like pummeling them with information. It's just a steady, gradual release of information, call to actions, all those things. So yeah, that's it for me for that question. I've got more to say.
And I'll say moderator, so I don't know any of this, of course, but in my own field, we talk about, which is a type of selling. I'm an attorney. We talk about planting seeds. That's how we get clients as we're planting seeds. And, maybe in 5 years, something will come of it, which kind of leads, it's this idea of a long game, as you put it, Whitney, which kind of leads me into my next question. Can you market too early? Let's say I'm looking for agents right now, perhaps, and I don't, which means that I won't be published probably for 5 years at this point, or I'm thinking like that. Is it ever too early to start marketing either yourself or your book?
I think that it depends on how you're marketing. Is it ever too early to get on social media and make friends with readers and other authors? Absolutely not. Do that as early as possible. Surround yourself with a community that understands what you're trying to do. Is it too early to spend money to try to create buzz about a book that hasn't been sold yet, or isn't ready to come out, or is still in the works? Yes, don't waste your money. We at Sword and Silk, we do a 6-month pre-order, and in that 6 months, that's when we build the buzz. But we may announce that book a year or a year and a half before the book's ever going to come out, because it still has to go through the editorial process and that sort of thing. And I would recommend to authors that unless your book is on pre-order, unless there are direct buy links, don't spend money on really anything. Don't spend money on advertisements. Don't spend money on book deal websites, because you want to eliminate the steps that a reader needs to do to get to your book. So if you start promoting now, if you start promoting when you're announced, like we just today announced that we brought on a new author to our company. If she started promoting her book now, all we have is a Goodreads link. That's it. So we have to hope that a reader is going to see the publisher's marketplace deal that was announced, and then they're going to go to Goodreads, and then they're going to click a link, and then Goodreads is going to email them when that book comes out, and that they're going to remember to check that email from Goodreads and it doesn't go to their spam, and then they're going to click the book that says it's ready, and then they're going to click another link to add it to their cart, and then they're going to buy it. And for a lot of readers and for a lot of consumers just in general, that's a lot of steps. So for me, I would say it's never too early to start building your audience. It is too early to do paid marketing until you have links ready.
Additions?
I mean, I don't know if there's really like a set time. I mean, Laynie, you might have a better idea of this, but I don't know if there's necessarily like a golden rule, like 6 months, anything earlier, like don't do that. But yeah, I would definitely agree that, as soon as you have this goal or this idea of becoming an author and making money from books, like I would definitely start creating a website, creating a newsletter, these ways to reach out to your audience once you do have something to announce. Something a little bit more reliable than social media, because Mark Zuckerberg could decide we're deleting Instagram or we're deleting Facebook, and then who knows what happens after that. But there's definitely it's definitely worth building your audience, so there's someone to basically be there with you when you have a pre-order or you reveal your cover or other things. I tend to personally build my audience by just giving them updates on how the book is doing. So like, for example, I just recently got a bunch of feedback from sensitivity readers. And so I talked a little bit about what that was like and thanked them for all of their hard work, and just talked about that step of the book publishing process. But there's no Goodreads, there's no cover yet. And so it's more or less just a post, and I will save my call to actions and such once there is some place for people to go. At least for my upcoming book. Obviously my other books are up and at it, but I'm trying to think. So if I were to give like a bit of a timeline, my book, The Throwaway Queen, is coming out end of August. And so I will probably do a lot of my hardcore marketing, countdown sort of stuff, probably like 2 months before that. Just give it all I have, so that way people are there on my first day, as opposed to like, wait, you published a book? Because I think that's everyone's worst nightmare. Like, I did all this work and you don't know what's up. You didn't get the message. So that's what I'm choosing to do. I imagine that, depending on what your author goals are, you might want to either lengthen or shorten that amount of marketing time.
Thanks, Whitney. Well, Sarah, if you have any comments, let me know. Otherwise, Laynie did bring me up to another question that we have.
Ooh. If I can I just want to real quick, just in case some people viewing this are not familiar with the term, a call to action is essentially what you're asking your reader or audience member to do when they see a piece of your marketing. And it's really important to keep in mind, what is that call to action? And like Laynie said, what stage am I at? So if I'm doing a tweet that says, buy my book, and I have a link, which also you shouldn't do because we talked about this earlier. So don't just spam everyone with buy my book. So if you have a tweet that says buy my book, but you don't have a place where people can buy your book yet, you are wasting that opportunity. And so really think about, what are you trying to achieve at whatever point you're at with your marketing efforts, because that does take time and effort away from your writing, which is really important and you should be focusing on and doing, even though sometimes social media is a fun distraction. So just make sure that you are doing it purposefully. So, the purpose of this tweet is to direct people to my author website where they can sign up for my mailing list. And then that's a direct way for me to tell them when my book is ready and ready for purchase. So just focusing on what is the call to action for each thing that I'm doing marketing wise, whether it's a tweet or a TikTok video. What do you want your audience to do right now?
Awesome. No, I love that. That's very helpful as well. The idea of a call to action too, certainly. That still leads me into exactly what Laynie had mentioned, that brought up another one of my questions here that we've been given. And I don't know that there's an answer, but I'm going to ask it, and hopefully it will lead into some other discussion. What's the average budget for marketing a book? And I think I probably that's the question I've been given, but I think I probably have to list that into, presumably trad publishing is going to be different than small press, is going to be different than self. But so if anyone has any thoughts on what's the average budget, and then, let's say we have less than that. What are some things that you can do to effectively market without spending that budget?
I think, honestly, it's such a wide range. You could launch a book with absolutely no money. You can do it, or you can throw all of your savings and 401k and the family house into your budget. But what I really want to get across with that is, if you're spending less money, spend more effort. So if you are trad published, make sure you have a conversation with that publisher. If you have an agent who's a go-between, make sure you have that conversation with your agent and know exactly what they are planning to do for you. Because even in trad publishing, authors are responsible for quite a bit of their own marketing. A lot of authors, it's kind of their dream to be trad published because they think once they sell their book, they're done. They can just go on fun book tours and never have to worry about marketing ever again, and then find out that that is not the case. And then in a lot of smaller publishers or small presses, there's a lot of disconnect sometimes between what an author thinks is going to happen and what actually happens. And that's because of a lack of communication between the publisher and the author. So make sure you have very clear expectations. Make sure you have had that conversation. If someone is adding to your marketing or helping with your marketing, obviously, if you're doing it independently, you're the one controlling that. So you might want to have that conversation with yourself. But make sure you know what other people are providing before you even start thinking about your budget. From there, if you want to spend less money, prepare to spend more time, more effort. You're gonna need to do that. You may, if you're not going to, there's places that you can pay for reviews as an author. You can pay Kirkus to get a Kirkus review. You can pay forward to get, well, I think their pay one is different. It's Clarion. If you're doing, if you're paying for it, it's Clarion. But there are a lot of very reputable book critics and book review sites that will allow you to pay for it. If you're not going that route, and if you're not going to pay to list your book on NetGalley, and if you're not going to pay to list your book on Otherwise or something like that, you're going to need to go ahead and find out, how am I going to bring reviewers to this book? Because reviews help sell books. I mean, from opening it up and seeing it on the first page, seeing it on the back of the book, I mean, they help. So you're gonna need to learn, you're gonna need to spend time researching that. You're gonna have to figure out how to do it. You're gonna have to actually put it into action. And that's just one of the components of book marketing that you could pay to play, per se, or you could do it on your own. Just expect to spend a little bit more time, a little bit more effort. Really, it comes down to, if you're going to do it that way, you're going to do so much research that you're going to feel like an expert in book marketing by the time you're done. and it happens. But, there are things that are completely free that help market books and help you connect to your readers. Because when we talk about marketing books, most of it, about 90% of marketing books, is connecting your book with its reader. And it's better to say that, because when we talk about book marketing as just book marketing, you get a lot of people going on Twitter with a buy link that says, buy my book, I wrote a book. And that doesn't help them. Nobody clicks the link. Nobody's intrigued. Nobody knows what the book's about. They don't care enough to click it. So connecting yourself to a reader happens in a lot of different ways. And you can find the ones that are free, things like newsletters. It is very possible to build a newsletter list without spending a dime. swapping with other authors who are in the same genre as you, who they can feature maybe a free first chapter of yours, or maybe you have like a story that comes before that you want to write out. It's just a little short story that you want to give away for free. If somebody signs up for your newsletter, those kinds of things are free. Reaching out to authors who you've made friends with and saying, hey, would you mind providing a blurb for my book? That's free. There's a lot of things you can capitalize in doing that. I would say that if you are going to spend money, to make sure you do your research and make sure you've given your money to proven techniques. Just because a website pops up and says, we're the best thing in book marketing, doesn't mean that they are. Make sure that you research them. You ask around, hey, have you used this company? What was your results? And make sure, like Whitney said, different readers for different genres hang out in different places. The same thing goes for paid marketing. If you are going to try to advertise your book using Amazon ads or Facebook ads or Instagram ads, you want to know where your audience is before you spend money to do that. So to answer your question the best I can, it can be from 0 to infinity, but you have to figure out what is most comfortable for you and where you're willing to make the negotiation between time and money.
I love that. And I think that that's really important. I think, if you can't spend money, you're going to spend more effort. I think that's fantastic. That's a great little tagline. Sarah, Whitney, any additions or comments as well, sort of on both questions? One, the broad one that I don't think anyone can probably answer. What's the average book marketing budget? And then 2 is sort of how do we do this either on a budget or not?
Yeah, I sometimes don't want to think about how much I spend on marketing, just because it can be very sneaky. I feel like when Laynie brought up how like a book cover counts as a marketing tool, a book cover, like especially the illustrated one I have, that can run you a couple $100, depending on what the invoice looks like, right? And so, if you're adding that, I'm like, ooh, that's paying your if you pay someone to lay out your book, that would count, And so if anything, if you are going to spend money, do as I say, not as I do. Keep track of all of these, these things. That way it's just not getting away from you. I feel like when I mentioned before about how marketing is like a science experiment, you want to see, does your effort actually lead somewhere? Because I would hate for someone to think like, all I have to do is pay for ads and then they don't see an uptick in their sales. That would mean that either they need to keep trying with the ads, or maybe it's just, that's not helping them. And I'd hate for people to just assume that it works for someone else, so it must work for me, I would say, for people who are more like on a dime, like who are watching their finances, especially during just really crazy times that we're all going through. One of the cheapest ways that you can market yourself is to basically place your community over competition, in the sense that, like, I have had a lot of success working directly with authors doing these, we'll swap books, we'll review the books. Sometimes all it takes is just establishing like that you're the nice person that is not like you're elbowing your way to be an Amazon bestseller or something like that. Just knowing that, yes, so someone knows that if they have a question about marketing, they could go to you, or they have a question about, like, should I work with this company or this website or things like that. Those were the sort of authors that I was drawn to when I was working on my debut novel. And I thought, that's the kind of author I want to be, like a resource instead of a competition or like an antagonist to someone else. And I would say like something like that is very hard to track. It's not like I was nice to 10 people that I sell a book, but I certainly feel like my efforts are worth it. Like, I think it's sort of like a temperature check of just like, the effort seems to be at least helping me again with this long game. Like, I can keep doing this, or, you know, I know that if I want help with, say, doing a cover reveal, I know I could reach out to 10 different authors and say, hey, can you put my cover like in your stories or in your feeds or something like that? And that, that's free publicity for me, and so I know marketing can sometimes feel like you are like a shark just out to get money or something, but I think you can also be, you could be the sweet cinnamon roll you want to see in the world as well. Just like we're just all, at the end of the day, we just want to write our fun stories, and we want to read everyone else's fun stories. There's no like, this is the one YA fantasy that you can read, and there's no other books. It's just this one, and so that is my long answer to, I will not tell you how much I spent on marketing.
I'd like to interject really, really quick, and then I'll let Sarah go. But Whitney brought up a really good point. If you make yourself approachable and you participate in the community without being the person that's slinging elbows, it not only helps you market your book, but it also opens you up to future potential opportunities. So if an author that you have become friends with is now involved in an anthology, they may come to you and say, hey, do you want to be part of this? When we opened Sword and Silk, we already had friends in the community that were amazing at what they did. We knew editors who were amazing. We knew former agents who were amazing. And we asked them, do you want to be part of this? Is this an opportunity that you would like to have? So not only does it help you in your marketing and your advertisement and things like that, it can also open doors for opportunities. So it's definitely in your best interest to be nice to others.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, it's all about how you make people feel, because word gets around and your reputation gets around. And, if you're saying one thing on social media and you're saying another thing in person to somebody else, that creates some inauthenticity there, and that can be really poisonous. So yeah, I don't know if this is relevant, so please stop me if it's not, but I know that, when we're talking about advertising budgets, when I first started my podcasts, my budgets for both of my shows were $0. And I was getting as innovative as I could. So not only using social media, which is beautiful and free and wonderful, but also trying to think like, how can I position myself in front of other people in a way that I don't have to pay for? And a lot of that, honestly, that's how I started my public speaking career. I was speaking at local events, and then afterwards people would, in this case, sign up for my podcast or download my show, but in your case, perhaps buy your book. And doing things like guesting on other podcasts. So, Marissa Meyer has this great podcast. I'm going to be on it, and I'm going to talk about Girl in Space. And now her audience knows about Girl in Space. And it's, Whitney, like you were saying, and Laynie, you too, about being generous as a community toward other authors. I love that. The other thing I wanted to say about marketing budgets, aside from you can do it with $0, is that eventually later on, when I was doing things, when I was like buying merch and things, I did become an LLC. And I don't know if that's something that is encouraged for book authors as well, but I know I usually encourage podcasters to, when you start out, when you publish your show, create an LLC. And then the money that you are spending on, travel to conferences or merchandise or whatever, that's a tax write-off. So that can save you a little money there too.
Yeah, And the lawyer in me says, make sure to check each state's
Yes.
but in general, yes. Yeah.
I am not a financial or legal advisor. So
Well, and I was going to say, and me saying this does not mean I am not creating
yes.
a legal relationship with anybody in this audience. Definitely single LLCs are pass throughs. So yeah, write that stuff off. But again, I'm not an accountant. Also, what I think, and none of you are my clients, just yeah. Well, so what I think, what I really took away from what you all have said in that last question as well was a big part of marketing is finding your community. You're finding your community of readers, but it sounds like from what Laynie and Whitney as well, and Sarah, you're finding your community of authors as well. Because if I have a community of authors behind me, I can do cover reveals with them, as Whitney said, or maybe they can tell me, hey, that this book tour company or hey, this book marketing company is a good one and that one's not. And so this is not a situation where you can be an island, I guess, but it seems like that a good way to market here is we are a community. People can have a bazillion different books, so you don't necessarily need to compete to make sure that they only buy yours, because bookshelves hold a lot of books, right? Awesome. Well, are there differences? I think we talked about it a little bit when we talked about social media and how Facebook maybe certain genres may do better on Facebook than others. But that's another one that's kind of along that question. Are there better methods for different genres? Should nonfiction be focusing not so much on social media, or should romance be focusing on something else? I mean, is there a difference in genres, or is a book and, use SEO, use branding, use social media, go forth?
Well, yes, a book is a book and you should use SEO and branding. That's not going to change. There are basics for a book that is every genre, every possible way. But I will say that to be the best author you can be, whether we're talking craft or marketing, is to read in your genre. If you are active in the reader community of your genre, I can't tell you how many YA fantasy groups I am in where when I started writing paranormal romance, I started writing it because I really like to read it. So I was joining all these fantasy smut groups, like where all they talked about
they're out there,
spicy, yeah. Like I'm part of them. So so I know where they are. I know what they're looking at. I know where they're hanging out. I know what makes them buy a book. I know that if some of them see particular words in a TikTok or an Instagram, post or anything, that's going to make them go look at the book because that's their thing. Being a reader puts you in a situation where you already know where your audience is. And yes, for nonfiction, speaking events are great. LinkedIn is great. Those are wonderful places. It gets a little bit more confusing when you're talking about genre fiction, just because so many of those spaces are virtual. They don't have to be. Cons are an amazing place to sell genre books. I mean, there's an artist alley at nearly every Comic-Con you could possibly go to. Go to an arts and crafts show and sell your books. You can do that kind of anywhere, but to know where your readers are and where you should focus, as much attention as you can, be a reader, make friends with other readers that are in that genre. It'll help you figure it out.
And I'd assume that's probably a really good, that's a craft question or a craft hint too, right? I mean, if I read enough in the genre, then I won't use the wrong conventions, and no one, you're not writing to market. So no, that's great. That's part of a whole other panel, perhaps. Awesome. Well, any jumping off of that, anything, Sarah, Whitney?
I'm going to say, yes, jumping off that, because Laynie, you said it so well. Being a member of a community gives you clout within that community. And we haven't really talked a whole lot about the do's and don'ts of marketing other than like, don't spam your book link. But, if you're going to try to, contribute to a community. So if you're jumping into a Reddit forum, or if you're jumping, into somewhere online where there is an established community, obviously don't just jump in and say, hey, I'm going to spam you with my book link and leave. You actually do need to be a part of the community in order for your words to resonate. So no, Laynie, that was very wonderful.
Yeah.
The only thing I was going to add is that with the current pandemic situation, it's very different wherever you are, or just your personal feelings about in-person events. But I think I think as you delve more into marketing, I feel like there's always a reward if you at least test something out that maybe is new or a little bit ahead of the game, just as a way to get your foot in, or just try to be as accessible as possible. Like, I think a lot of people tend to do well at in-person events like conventions, or just arts and crafts events. But I published one of my books during 2020, and there were just no in-person events. And so I tried different ways to, we were all scrambling. If you remember, like traditional India, like we were like, how do we still sell books during a pandemic? Like everyone's really upset. How do we say, like, buy my goofy book? Sometimes you feel like, you should be using your money for important things during like difficult times. And I don't know if we're ever going to be in a time where like nothing is wrong, politically or globally, but so that's why I said like silly book. But I know like a lot of people try it out, like, like what we're doing right now, having like a Zoom or a Discord convention. A lot of people tried out Clubhouse, which I'm still not on, but I know a lot of authors were like, let's just try it. Let's see what's here. That's why TikTok is so popular, because a lot of people started using TikTok more often. And so, I think there's always a little bit of room of creativity, of just, again, what's comfortable, where are your folks hanging out. But I think there's always a healthy mix of being online and in person, that will just, help you get into the right places, And I would also want to add that when you're part of communities, or like trying to find communities, that's where the personal marketing or like personal branding comes in, because like I'm part of like the young adult world and the new adult world. But if I market myself, then I can genre hop. I can, I could go into podcasting, or, try something completely else. And I'm still saying like, this is me. This is what you can expect from me. Yeah. And I would say that if you're participating in this convention, there's likely something very interesting about you or your story that you're trying to share. And that's always worth, maybe not like marketing off, or maybe that's not the right word, but, being, like I would say, like, what am I trying to say here? So I think what I'm trying to say is like, if you're a person of color, if you're part of the LGBT community, definitely go to communities that want to lift your voice up, or where you are safe and able to share your story without having like official like button up sort of vibe, that you can truly be yourself and share more about your books. I know there are a lot of communities, a lot of indie bookstores that would love to have you for an event, just because, that I think that's the great thing about indie, is that you can be and say whatever it is that you feel like you're called to say. and then find the people who are willing to listen to that. Yeah. And again, I don't know if that's totally in line with the question, but that's just like a thought that I had.
No, I love it. I feel like we have so many like great little sound bites from this that you guys are just giving these little nuggets of information that I want to put on like a coffee cup or a t-shirt. And I do want to leave some room for questions at the end. So I'm going to do two things left for our panel. And Sarah, you kind of preview this. What I would like is to ask each of you, give me your top 2 do's and don'ts of marketing. I know. What are things, and they don't even have to be top 2, but what are 2 things that you can suggest to our audience members here that they should do and that they should not do?
I feel like I'm on Jeopardy. Like it should be dun 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 dun. Like I think my top one would be do know what's marketable about your book.
Mm-hmm.
Know what your strength is inside that book. Know what your tropes are. Know your genre. A lot of people are really confused about genre when they first start writing. And they're like, well, it's going to be this and this and this, and I'm going to mash it all together. And that's fine, but you need to know how to market that, how it's going to find its audience. So that would be my number one, would be know what's marketable about your book, know where your book fits in the marketplace, because everything you do from there is going to springboard off of that information. And my other thing would be to find your community, as we've been talking about, your community of both your readers and your other authors and other people in the publishing industry. Podcasters, bloggers, those are all part of your circle. They could all help you along the way. So make sure you are open to making new connections with people, because people are one of your best assets in reaching other people. And my 2 don'ts would be, don't assume that you have written the best book in the world and treat other people accordingly. So if you do get on, Twitter or any sort of social media and just scream at people about how wonderful your book is, and that's not going to want to make them read it. All of us think our books are amazing, on most days.
Oh, that's a whole other panel.
So imposter syndrome happens, but if we didn't feel like the book should be out in the world, I mean, it wouldn't be. It came from our brains, right? So everybody kind of has an affinity for their own books, and readers know that. So make sure that your demeanor is showing that this is what is special about this book. This is what is important about this book. This is what makes this a good book. Not just because I think so, but here's the social proof, which we talked about reviews earlier. That's social proof. So other authors reviewing your book and leaving blurbs, or anything like NetGalley or Book Sirens is another review site. Anytime you're getting someone else to say your book is good, that is what's called social proof. Mm-hmm. And you can use that in images on Instagram. You can use that, you can put it on Twitter. You can put it on your Amazon page to help sell your books. So any sort of social proof that you're getting can help sell your book. But you don't want to come across as you think that you are the best thing ever, and so is your book. That is not what readers want to see. So definitely take your slice of humble pie, and
what you said, that was so charming.
I know, that was so perfect.
And market your book accordingly. And my number 2 would be specific to the traditional press, even hybrid press, small press. Communicate with the other people on your team. Know who's doing what, know what to expect. There are a lot of hurt feelings that can come from those conversations not happening. And the last thing that you want on your release day is to feel like no one lived up to their promises when they didn't actually tell you what they were going to do. So make sure you understand the process, make sure you understand what each person is going to do for you. So those are my 2 each.
Thank you, Laynie. And I know that was, I threw that one at you, definitely. You can crib too. Either, if you want to say, yeah, what Laynie said, that's.
I just second that at the end. No.
Do's and don'ts, the last do's and don'ts for our marketing how-to panel.
My first do is going to be something that we talked about a little bit earlier, which was do make sure that you have in mind for whatever you're doing, whether you are appearing on someone else's podcast, whether you are giving a talk, whether you are, crafting a tweet or making a TikTok video, have a call to action in mind. Why are you creating this? What do you want your audience or your potential audience that you're still working on building? What do you want them to do with what you're giving them? And how do you want them to feel? My second do is, again, something. So these are just basically recaps. Sorry.
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
It's good. It's good for us to revisit.
I know that we very much briefly touched on having an author website. And I know Whitney brought up the point that, like, hey, if Facebook or Instagram disappears tomorrow, if that's where your audience is, and if that's the only place that your audience lives, you're kind of screwed because there goes your audience. So making sure that you have a place that you own, so your own website, even if that's not where you want to direct most of your traffic, even if that's not going to be your main call to action is like, visit my website. Even if that's not where you sell your books, I would still recommend having a website of, kmalady.com or kmaladyauthor.com or whatever. Yes, whatever your brand or your pen name or your sort of brand is. I would suggest having that and making sure that it exists and that it looks okay. Even if it's one page, that's absolutely fine. It can just be like sarahwerner.com. Sarah loves writing books, the end. It just exists as a trust signal, if nothing else. Now, of course, you can spice it up with SEO. You can, of course, sell your books there, link to social, all of that stuff. Do guest blogging, have people link back to your website and create a beautiful, beautiful web if you so desire. But having a website just as your own home means that you don't have to rely on someone else's platform to build your audience. That website's also a great place to build your email list, which we didn't talk about a whole lot today, but is very much worth doing. My 2 don'ts are, I'm just going to be like, don't spam your link. Don't be a turd. Don't be that person. And then one other thing that, again, was very, very briefly touched on for my don't is don't skimp out on cover art. I know we say don't judge a book by its cover, but at least I am very guilty of buying books that have beautiful covers only to realize later that maybe the book wasn't that good, but the cover was beautiful and it got my money. So,
yep.
Yeah. So that's what I have to say about that.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Whitney, your top 2 do's and don'ts?
Yeah, I had to write this down just so I made sure they weren't repeats of what the other
I did the same thing.
So one of my do's is just to make your books very easy to access or define. I like to say, like, stupid easy. Like, think a family member who's not comfortable with technology, like, how would they access your book? And I feel like this is tangential to marketing, but do research on how to make your books available at indie bookshops, like in person, or make them available at your local libraries. Basically, if your book, I may be wrong about this, but basically, if your book has an ISBN, that will make your book a lot more easier for these other organizations to access and order copies of your book. Because I know I definitely grew up with a budget of like, how many library books can I can I get this month? You know, and that's a great way to reach out to your readers without the expectation of them having to pay to, you know, read your story or things like that. So, and that also means like if you have a website, if you have social media, make it so that it's just very easy and streamlined for people to find the books, especially if they're on Goodreads or on Amazon or bookshop.org, wherever you like to sell books. You know, if your reader feels like they have to take too many steps, you've lost them, as Laynie has said previously. Like if there's too many dance moves, they're gonna give up. My second do is to do your research. And luckily, there's a lot of ways to get access to this information for free. I know a lot of authors or a lot of creatives have podcasts. That's a really great, wonderful resource. I personally use Pinterest to access other author blogs where they share more information about just the publishing process in general. If you're looking to avoid as many pitfalls as possible, doing your research can really help. A lot of authors are very, very generous with their experience, you know, things they've actually tried and have worked or have failed for them. And so it's, I would say definitely do that. Definitely read up on all of this. Like, you don't have to go to like a marketing coach unless you really want to. A lot of authors will just say like, this is what I've learned. And yeah, so definitely do that. My first don't follow another author's dream. We've talked a lot about like author goals, and something that has really stressed me out is basically thinking to myself internally, like, I need to do X, Y, and Z to reach X, Y, and Z goal. But when I were to sit down and think about it, I'm like, I don't actually care. I want to traject in a different direction, if that makes sense. And that could, you know, really put a damper on your experience and really just confuse yourself and your audience about what the end goal is here. Like if you're listening and you're like, I just want to publish for the sake of crossing off a bucket list, a lot of this stuff probably won't matter because anyone can upload, you know, their files to Amazon and be published. I'm not taking away from that achievement, but it's not like you have to market to be an author. It's you market so more people know about your books, right? And so if you want to be an Amazon bestseller, there's a trajectory for that. Like there's a path that many authors deliberately take to reach that goal. If your book, like if you want to have a book award, like, you know, the nice little medallion that's printed on your cover, there's a path for that. Different steps, a lot of the principles overlap, but I would just recommend sticking with your goal, maybe like putting some blinders up so that you don't get distracted by someone else's shiny goal. They're all good. It's just, what is your goal? And then my last don't is whatever you do not create negative buzz. I know publicity I know a lot of times people are like, any kind of publicity is good publicity, but at least in the book community, I've seen that readers really care about basically what the authors put out there. And a lot of conversation right now is about, you know, how politics, how people's values, how they reflect in their writing or their platform. And it could be detrimental to your upcoming release if you were to make a mistake and then really just really not apologize for it, or really the process like, I don't care, you know, come at me, whatever. I think there's a when you are putting yourself in a public space, I think there's a lot of PR things to keep in mind, and knowing how to apologize for a mistake that we will all inevitably make down the line. it's good to know how to how to forge a really good apology that sets people at ease and it doesn't affect all the hard work you've put into a book. I would say like right now, I wouldn't say like tensions are high, but there's just a lot more conversation about inclusivity in books. I know a lot of books are being banned right now. And the last thing that your book needs is just a bad opinion that your readers are not in agreement with. Not to say that you have to lie about your position on certain topics or certain things, but I would say, yeah, know when to have that slice of humble pie and apologize and, you know, keep things professional, I guess, it is a good way to go. I've seen people have to take down their books because the pressure was too high or too hard. And I don't want that for anyone else. Like, I think there's a way to overcome these sort of circumstances, whether you wanted them or not, without jeopardizing the success of your book. So yeah, that's the tea without naming specifics. There's always something dramatic going on. So yeah.
Well, thank you both, Whitney. Thanks everyone. And so I'm going to close this out with our own call to action. We have now learned what that is. So if you want to promote something yourself, direct people, this last bit, let's start with Whitney, because I know Whitney, we've been going down the line, at least according to my screen. And Whitney, you're always at the end. So Whitney, if you'll start us off with a call to action, where can we find you? Where can we find Destiny Seeker, your upcoming book, that sort of thing?
I would just say, if you want to connect with me in any capacity, just head to my author website. It's witandtravesty.com, spelled, well, I guess you'll have the link, but it's witandtravesty.com, and you'll find links to my books there. I hope to be selling books on the website soon. I just need to, again, do my research, but yeah, you'll find all the links there. So that's where you'll find me.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah.
Whitney also has a great newsletter that you should subscribe to on her website. I subscribe and it's very good. So please subscribe to Whitney's newsletter. I also have a newsletter. It's called Dear Creators, and it comes out every Monday morning. You can sign up for my newsletter or download the Right Now podcast, which is a show for writers at all stages. And it helps give you the time, energy, and courage you need to pursue your passion and write. I also do have episodes on marketing, though. So you can find links to that. And you can also find links to Girl in Space, my award-winning audio drama about a girl in space, over on my personal website, which is sarahwerner.com. And that is SARAHWERNER.com. And you can also find me on Twitter, Instagram, etc. at Sarah Ray Werner. And you can see how to spell my name down here, I think. So
yes, there I was going to say there it is. Yes.
Ooh, excellent.
All right, Laynie.
And if you want to know more about Sword and Silk Books, which is the publishing company that I co-own, you can find out more at swordandsilkbooks.com. We have an amazing blog that has Writer Wednesdays that does cover things like marketing sometimes, but also covers things like craft and burnout and finding your community. We're blessed to have a really wonderful content creator who helps us with that. You'll also find information about the books that we publish and how you could possibly be one of those. So all of that is on that website, or pretty much any social media at Sword and Silk Books.